Hey everybody. So I was inspired to like write a few paragraphs as part of the book because I took like probably a week or so off, just separating my mind from the book. And I'm writing about, like the drugs and everything else that's out there. And I completely now understand why it is that we have to have a centralized authority when it comes to regulation. Because I'm thinking, I mean, with the drug trade, with marijuana and alcohol and all of that, and then unstable people and greedy people. We have people right now, we're seeing Facebook posts about cocaine being cut with fentanyl and it's killing people. We're seeing, so many crazy things. And so there is a role for the government. And if you choose to partake in something that is illicit or something that is, illegal, well, I can understand why the government gets involved, why the government is looking after the poppy fields, probably in Afghanistan, why it is that they're trying to fight and manage and regulate the drug war at the borders. Because imagine if they didn't. Because look, you try to outlaw something, right? Like back in the 1980s, the Just Say No campaign that Nancy Reagan did, and then prohibition back in the 1900s. So prohibition back in the 1900s, you had Al Capone and the mafia all take over the black market alcohol trade. And then people were dying left and right, and they were strong arming, small businesses, and it became just out of control. It was like anarchy, and people were dying left and right. So finally they said, okay, because they tried to invoke the Volstead Act, which is basically prohibition. And then they decided that, okay, well, that's not going to work because now we have these underground entities that are trying to control that market, and it's an underground market and people are out of control. Well, we're going to allow it to happen, but it has to be regulated. So that way you're not getting some nasty alcohol that's going to kill you. That's why, there are certain conditions that some of these products have to be met so it can be then dispersed to the general public. So you don't have people dying all over, because who stands to gain from people, alive? Well, your government does. You know why? Because we want to have a society where people are able to go to work every day, where people are able to go and hang out with their families. So there's relative peace. If we allow, like we just say, no, we can't have alcohol, we can't have drugs, and then people are getting creative, and then you have the black market, that's when things get crazy. And so then you have the 1980s, which is the Just Say No campaign. And then guess what? Then you had all those crazy, I don't know, back in Colombia, you have all those big, huge drug kingpins that were killing people left and right. Yeah, some of them were one of those that they gave money to the community, but they also were like a king. They didn't really teach people how to do anything. They were just giving money because they were making so much money off the drug trade. And then we had the drug war, and that's why we have the government that we had to then sort of put a stop to it. No, it's not altogether 100% done, but I could see why they're in it and regulating it. Because if I choose to do drugs, which I don't condone anyone to do any kind of drugs, at least you're going to get something that's not going to kill you. And no different than some of these medications that are FDA approved, right? Yeah, you may, yeah, we can call it the Federal Death Agency, but imagine if they were then non-regulated, unregulated, and somebody was making these drugs and saying, oh yeah, it's going to do this, 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 and this, and then they put it out there on the open market being sold on every street corner, and people were dying all over the place. That would be chaotic. Okay, so I'm just like, oh my God. So it finally, as I'm writing this paper, right, I'm writing this chapter, this section about, government and the need for government and why and this and that. Yeah, I mean, look at the dark web. People are doing with trafficking and human and drug and something else. I mean, it's because it's crazy. If you didn't have police or law enforcement out here to deal with totally unstable people, would you want to deal with that? So I'm like taking a whole nother look at these anti-government groups and stances, and I'm like, oh my God, what the heck? It was like, you know, I was lost 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, found the internet, found something that I can bitch about because my life was so out of control, right? And then I got married and everything was wonderful, and I started exploring my health stuff. And now I'm on the other end of it going like, wow, once you get control over your health and your life, you're not going to be blaming anybody for anything. And then you start seeing the logic behind law and order. Oh, it's a trip. It's a freaking trip. Because I'm writing this. I mean, there's this one sentence I was writing. I'm trying to remember what it was here. So I said here, what is it? I said, it seems the government has its good and bad qualities, but mostly good qualities. They tried to outlaw alcohol back in the 1900s with the Volstead Act, but it was repealed due to the growing black market of alcohol run by the mafia. And you know what happened with the mafia. The people were dying left and right. Additionally, Nancy Reagan and the Just Say No campaign against drugs were also introduced in the 1980s, with cocaine and heroin and marijuana were all over the streets of America. Since the drug trade is so lucrative, the government had to go in and regulate it somehow. Yes, make money too, but who would you trust? A government that wants to make sure that you're not going to die so that way you can go to work every day and make money for your family so you don't have chaos in the streets? Or would you trust some kingpin, right? But I know the kingpins wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't necessarily make money off of dead clients, but there's some people that are out there that are making these drugs, they're cutting it with really bad stuff, and then it's out on the street, and then now the government has to go and figure out where the heck it came from, and then go arrest them. Drug busts all over the place. Some places are like gateways, you know, like Lake City, Florida, major drug gateway over there. So, you know, now that I'm getting, you know, so well balanced, and I don't partake in the drug trade, of course. I don't see a need for alcohol or drugs or anything illicit, anything that alters the mind. I can now look at everything from a logical perspective because I don't have to worry about health insurance. I don't have to worry about drugs. I don't have to worry about alcohol. I don't have to worry about anything that these people are all like up in arms with because I'm actually finally at a place where I'm so healthy. And so now I'm looking at everyone from like an outside perspective going like, oh my God. Addicted people don't really have many choices. And so somebody, the nanny, has to go in and start regulating things because people are out of control. It makes complete sense. So yeah, these people who are against the government and the 5G and all this other stuff, you got to realize if you did not have law enforcement or the government at all, would you be able to survive in a dystopian society? Like seriously, would you be able to survive back in the Dune days where there's roving rapists and crazy mutated violent people? Would you be able to survive in a prison that is completely out of control? Because that's what it would be like if you didn't have semi-healthy people keeping law and order. So now I'm completely like disgusted. No, it doesn't matter if they flooded it with, you don't even know that, Michelle Barr. You don't know that. We absolutely, and if they did, it was probably better stuff than what they were. You don't know where that stuff came from. It did, it's probably better to have the government be the drug people than some crazy person that you don't know. Because then you'd have because people are going to do what they're going to do, Michelle Barr. If you partake in drugs, then it's your own fault that if you get a bad or whatever. Okay? So I don't really want to hear your activism. Because if you partake in the drug trade or you're into illicit drugs, then you really have no voice. You want to have it from a source that's going to be good. And what's good is probably the government's going to be probably better than some idiot that's trying to cut it with some nasty stuff. You're going to want to have it regulated in some way because do you want to buy drugs from someone that messed it up? I mean, come on, common sense, not this emotional, oh, the CIA flooded. That is so like classic conspiracy BS that I've dealt with in the last 5 or 10 years. And now I understand the role of the FDA on some level. Because imagine somebody cutting all of these different prescription drugs or illicit drugs with all the craziest, crappy, nasty stuff you find at AutoZone, you know, and you now have people dying all around you. I mean, there's probably drug addicts in my town, but guess what? They're not dying. You know why? Because somebody is regulating that. So if the government has to go and regulate illicit drugs, all right, later, Michelle Barr. See, these people who are so, yeah, and you probably do drugs too. Okay, and drug addicts on my Facebook, you're gonna obviously, expose yourself. But I would rather have the government control the drug trade and regulate it on some level than some idiot in the basement cutting it with nasty stuff, which would kill somebody that is addicted. Okay, so you got to understand what would happen if you didn't have somebody regulate it. You have to understand that. And if you don't understand that, then you are still an activist. And activists don't belong on my Facebook. And I unfollowed you a long time ago. There's a reason why I unfollowed you. So blocking you, Michelle, bye. See, when I can tell when someone is still on that whatever, and then they're talking smack. So yeah, I'm sure that the government is the biggest drug dealer, but you know what? I'd rather they are and they regulate it than some idiot that's cutting it with stupid stuff. Because what would happen if you didn't have somebody overseeing it and look out relative, best interest relative, okay? Hey, we can't force people to eat healthy. We can't force people to not take drugs. We can't force people to be the best they can be. People are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to drink their alcohol, be stupid. They're going to smoke their pot, drive a car. They're going to take LSD and all these different mushrooms and do stupid stuff. And so somebody has to be there to go and say, hey, we're going to hold you accountable, or hey, we're going to take you to jail, or hey, you can't make this stuff cut this way. It's against the law. Somebody's got to, and it ain't going to be you. Right? So somebody's got to be the bad guy. Someone's got to, play both sides of the fence, I guess. What do you do in your world if you had 20 people under you and you can't control them all? And so they know that you are, you're basically, you're not in their house. They can't seriously, they don't have access to your house, but you know that you're the leader. So you know that they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to drink their alcohol. They're going to do their drugs. So you're like, okay, well, if you really truly want to do your drugs, then we'll have to find a way to regulate it in some way. We're going to have to make sure it's coming from a sound source, so that way you don't die from it. Because we know people that can't control their drug habits or alcohol habits, their eating habits. They're going to eat whatever, and they're not going to know what's in it, so somebody has to go and control that. Now, if you are a healthy person, then you won't even at all partake in alcohol, drugs, or any horrible food. But we have people that don't care. So we got to make sure that they don't die from their not caring, from their ignorance. Well, it makes sense. It completely makes sense. It's bad enough that we have to live in a world where we have to have a gun in our house. What would happen if we didn't have a world where we didn't have to have a gun in our house? That would be awesome. But if that's not the world that we live in, we have to have a gun in our house because we have idiots that are out there. Idiots that do stuff. So somebody has to make sure that we keep those idiots in line. If not, then you got to deal with them. And you're not prepared to deal with the idiots in this world. I certainly wasn't prepared to deal with the idiots the last 2 or 3 years when I've been rolling this out. Oh, hell no, I wasn't prepared. But my government knew what I was doing. They just want me to substantiate it because what their role is to make sure that what I'm doing is legal, that it does abide by the laws of advertising, that it's not dangerous. And cabbage, water, and salt is not dangerous. I've substantiated every single thing. Not that they're going to say, yeah, you did a great job, but obviously I'm not arrested. I'm not doing anything unlawful. So that ought to tell you something, that sauerkraut is not illegal. There's things out there that have way more sodium than my drink. Okay. So yeah, so I'm so over the anti-government people. I'm over it. I'm over it. So anyone who wants to be anti-government on my page, oh, I can't wait to shoot you off. I can't wait to get you off my page because you know what? I understand. Because you won't be anti-government if you're 100% independent of your health and all of that. If you don't need health insurance, if you don't need drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, then guess what? You have no beef with the government. You know it costs money to be in the society because you have infrastructure that you don't take care of. So paying taxes is really no big deal either for me. Like, I understand now. No, I'm not a status. I'm not kissing anybody's ass because I'm going to tell you, I'm not taking anything from the FDA that's out there on the market. I'm not buying into the health insurance. Yeah, I'll do life insurance because my husband wants to have certain things on it, but that's about it. But that's it. I don't have any other dealings with the government at all. I pay my registration, pay my insurance because that's being financially responsible. Pay your taxes because that's being financially responsible. And then the rest, I'm on my own. That's a freedom. Everyone that's dependent are freaking slaves. You guys that are sick, you're a slave. You're dependent on health insurance, you're a slave because you can't do it on your own. So you need mommy and daddy to hold your hand. That's why not everybody can do this protocol, because they need mommy and daddy to hold their hand. And that's why there's so many anti-government people, because you know why? They need mommy and daddy to hold their hand and they resent it. Yeah, I understand. I get it. I would hate it too that I needed mommy and daddy for everything that I did in my life. But some people do, and they resent it, and you can see them because they're blasting the government on everything, whether it's chemtrails, 5G, or something else. And then when you finally relax and you get yourself completely level, you will start seeing that. But right now, some of you are still out of control inside. So you're still resentful of any authority because you haven't gotten control over your own life, your own insides. Once you stop fighting, you realize that actually life can be very peaceful. You don't have to deal with shoulders that are hurt or wondering if, something's going to happen one day or whatever. You're not going to worry about prices going up, food prices or whatever, or even if cabbage goes up or salt goes up, hey, that's fine. I'm saving money anyways on the food. So I'm not even worried about that. But some people are so worried, oh my God, what happens if the salt goes up and the cabbage goes up and everything? Whatever. That's your paranoia mentality because of the instability in your body. So yeah, there's still a market out there for all of the bad foods because there's people who are parasitic, who will eat the chips and feed their parasites and drink the Cokes and all of that. There's still a market there because we still have unhealthy people. And there's still a market for the drugs. So then now you got to deal with it. You got to deal with them putting patents on it. You got to deal with them regulate in some way. Yes, the government will have their hand in it, but you know what? I'd rather have them have a hand in it than not, than have it be to some dude that's an idiot down the street cutting it, from all of the stuff from under his sink. Okay, so, there are trade-offs, okay? So Michelle Barr's whole thing about the CIA, the biggest drug dealers, if you don't do drugs, then it's not going to affect you. But if you're a drug addict, well, then, hey, beggars can't be choosers. So you know who the drug addicts are, the ones that are railing against all of the government regulations on it. Because somebody has to, because you ain't going to do it. You want to take your drugs. So someone's got to make sure that no one completely dies off these drugs. All right, talk to you later. Bye.